What I'd like to do now is hand the floor over to Simon, Simon Hill, and let you make your presentation, please, Simon.
Okay,
welcome.
thanks. Well, apologies for not being able to make it to the start of this meeting. There's a joint Photographic Alliance of Great Britain RPS Distinctions Day today that Janet Haynes is managing. And Janet wanted me to say something to that group when it started, and it started at the same time as this meeting. So it's almost like a National Photography Weekend. I've got 2 events today, well, 2 this morning, one this afternoon, and then 2 tomorrow. So it's the day to be a photographer, that's for sure, or the weekend to be a photographer. Secondly, before I go on to the main bit, Mervyn, I see, is here. Mervyn, were you here from the start? Sorry, you're on mute. But
Mervyn was, yeah.
I got a nod there. Yeah, so would you be able to feed back to trustees on what I missed? And because I suspect there's been some very good chat about the TORs. Yes. So that would be great. Yeah. Okay, thanks. And finally then, after my quick overview of the strategy, which I think we've probably touched on already, you wanted me to look at leading a conversation or a discussion about success factors for SIGs and regions. Is that still the case?
Yes,
because
please,
that
yeah.
would be a very useful and timely exercise to do that. And I think the emphasis there is on leading the conversation, not telling you what I think your success factors should be, because I have no idea what they should be. Apologies, that's my border terrier joining into the debate. Right, so I'm going to share screen, Stuart.
Yep.
Hopefully.
You will be able to.
Let's see what we've got.
Yep. Photography for everyone.
Oh, well, that's promising. Right, good. Okay. Okay, right. So those of you that received the journal, which should be everybody, as you're all RPS members, including Elaine in Australia, although you may not have received yours yet. I know there's obviously a delay in getting it to Australia. But the RPS strategy for 2021-26 was launched in the journal. A very nice 2 double-page spreads there with some great photography of people doing photography. So those that you have seen it, I'm hoping that you've read it. So I'm going to try and avoid duplicating what you will have read there. You may also, he says, plugging his blog, seen the blog post that I did under the title Helios. So those of you that remember the Russian lens will I'm sure know the link there between Helios and the strategy. But if you haven't seen it, if you could have a look at that there, I'm also putting new information in there about the launch of the strategy as well. And most recently, there's one on distinctions, which you might also like to read. The strategy then, the importance of photography. I'm not going to read this. I'm quite happy to give this to Stuart to circulate this presentation afterwards. But photography is important to all of us. It's more important now than it has been in the past, and certainly imagery and image making. From the advent of photography, when it was a gentleman's pursuit, with very few women involved in photography, and that soon changed, to today when everybody with a smartphone is a photographer. And we're not really meeting the needs of every photographer, which is where the title comes from, Photography for Everyone. We need to meet the needs of more photographers, members and non-members. And hopefully some of those photographers will ultimately become members. Evan provided the introduction to this. We asked our patron if she would write an introduction to it, but Kensington Palace told us that would be too promotional, so therefore she politely declined, and Evan stood in for her. So there's a line on his CV which is worth having. So the vision then, the vision for the RPS, and the vision which is enabled by the strategy, and the mission for it. A world where everyone is inspired, empowered and educated in the art and science of photography. And the key word there, as I've said, is everyone. And what do we want to do with everyone? We want to bring inspiration, creativity and connectivity through photography to everybody, to everyone. And it's those 3 names, from the 3 words from the mission, inspiration, creativity and connection, that form the 3 pillars of the strategy. we're calling it Strategy 21 for shorthand, simply because we're starting it in 2021 and there are 21 programs, and that's purely coincidental. We didn't devise 21 programs just so that we could call it Strategy 21, although there is a certain elegance to it. But underpinning each of those 21 programs are 5 aims, and they are the 5 aims: to gain greater inclusion in everything that we do, to have an environmental and social responsibility. And those of you that have downloaded the strategy and read it will see there's a spelling mistake there, so we've picked up on that. So edition 2 will not be responsibility, it'll be responsibility. Member involvement, more diverse member involvement, and by that I mean not a diversity of membership, because that's covered in inclusion, but a diversity of activities and involvement that each member can participate in. Financial sustainability, that's a big problem for us at the moment. We have a budget that is more than our income, so we have a deficit budget year on year. We're reducing that deficit, but we still have historic deficits to deal with. So we're not in the best place financially, but John Miskelly, as our honorary treasurer, has got an absolute vice-like grip on that, and with Nikki, who's the director of finance for the RPS, that's being addressed, and we are closing that gap, which is great. And of course, profile raising. We want more people to know about the RPS and what the RPS stands for. It's amazing how many people feel that you have to get the LRPS before you're allowed to become a member of the RPS, and that's completely, cart before the horse. Become a member of the RPS and start that journey towards the distinctions. So those 3 pillars then: inspire, to see photography. We are inspired by photography, we're inspired by each other, and we want to build on that, to give greater access and understanding about photography. We want to also encourage people to create more photography. And that doesn't just mean working from one distinction to the next, and then when you get your fellowship, that's it. It's as I was saying to the distinctions event this morning, the distinctions are unimportant in many respects. It's the gap between, it's the space between those distinctions that are important. The way I see distinctions, and the way the distinctions work for my professional practice, is that they are punctuations in the journey. And yes, you get your LRPS, but don't then say, right, the next job is to get the ARPS. It isn't. The next job is to build on what you've learned in gaining your LRPS, to explore more about photography, developing visual literacy, finding out how your photography can communicate. And out of that will come the idea for an ARPS. And then you reach that next punctuation point. And then again, it's another divergence of practice that takes you on to that. So creativity and creating photography, distinctions fits under that pillar. And the final, the third pillar then is connecting, using photography, sharing photography. And that's done so often now. So many people share photography, not just as a photograph, saying, I'm showing this as a brilliant photograph. It's socially documenting their lives through social media. More photographs are used on social media probably than have been taken as pure fine art photographs in the history of photography. It's an incredible medium now that we are very privileged to be practitioners in, and we should be able to share our work and improve the standards and quality of photography globally. So shown diagrammatically then, strategy 21, the strategy, as I've said, is photography for everyone. That's broken down into 3 pillars: inspire, create and connect, which are derived from the mission, which itself comes from the vision that we have for the RPS. And there are the 21 programs. And there you can see that's 2.2 distinctions are under that create program. But then we've got other established initiatives like the journal, which is under inspire. And that's not just inspiring other people through the journal, it's inspiring ourselves as well. And so many people have said that the journal isn't important to them, and that why, can't they have their membership and just elect out of the journal and have a cheaper membership? I mean, what a lost resource. We've really tried to make that journal, with its redesign earlier last year, into a really good resource for photographers, not just members, but the wider photography sector as well. So each of the 7, I'm not going to go through each of the 7, you'll be relieved to know, but I'll just pick out 1 or 2. I've just spoken about the journal at 1.3. RPS Awards 1.2 will be coming up soon. And that's a way that we can take the RPS to a much wider audience. And also to introduce to members of the RPS a more diverse collection of photographers that may or may not already be members of the RPS. But an interesting one is 1.6. We've got the marvellous support of the Duchess of Cambridge, who we're lucky to have as a patron, because she is a keen photographer and an able photographer. So it's wonderful to have a patron who is also keen on the medium. So we're going to create with Kensington Palace a photographer laureate, and that will help take the message of the RPS out. So we will be able to link this inspirational side with a program from the 3rd pillar, the connecting, the sharing photography, and you'll see there how just one small link between the pillars will give as Rolf so eloquently said in his text, in his chat there, that the sum of these will be greater than the individual, the sum of them. So creating then here, distinctions and qualifications are still very much front and center in the create. But as I touched on earlier, I want to look at working with Andy. Well, we've started already looking at a new operational model for distinctions, and I stress that that's an operational model. We're not changing the distinctions, we're not changing the requirements for the distinctions, but we're just looking at how we can operate the distinctions across the RPS and promote them outside of the RPS, and try and encourage photographers not to see them as an endpoint. I mean, if you're a member of the distinctions Facebook page, you'll see when somebody gets their ARPS, and they quite rightly celebrate that on the distinctions page, Facebook's page, and it's great to see, and I share their enthusiasm and their satisfaction in getting their RPS. But I find it so disappointing when they finish their post by saying, right, now I've got to start work on my FRPS. And as I said earlier, no, you haven't. You know, enjoy where you are in photography. You've reached a point with your ARPS. Now explore photography more, and the ideas for your FRPS will evolve out of that. Honestly, they will. And I think we've just got to get that across more, that the distinctions are punctuation points on a journey. They're not the end point. They're not the destination. RPS House at 2.7 is something that we really need to look at. It's an expensive asset. I think if I'd been president or chair of the board when that was purchased, I might have made a case for it not being purchased. It's expensive. Its location is not ideal for the nation as a whole, but we have got it. It is our headquarters. It's our home as photographers, as members. So we need to make it work for us. How that works, I don't know. John Miskelly is looking at a report that Evans produced, and that's going to be circulated to the board shortly. So we'll be canvassing opinion on that. Getting rid of RPS House, I don't think is an option, because we need a home, and we've got it, and I think we'd lose so much on it. The RPS has put so much into converting that building that we've really got to make it work for us now, and it'd be so much better when we can actually meet there again. So the final pillar then, the connect. I ought to perhaps mention here that I've started calling the regions regional hubs, rather than what it was called until recently, which was UK hubs, because we had a problem with our colleagues or friends in Ireland, in the island of Ireland. We'd of course got Northern Ireland as a regional hub, as a UK hub, but then we'd got Ireland. Ireland was operating as a region, as in the Republic of Ireland era, was operating as a region, but it was also a quasi-chapter. But you could understand, I'm sure, that the Irish, the Republic of Ireland Irish, took offence at being referred to as a UK region. So much easier to say the RPS has regions and they're hubs for geographical areas. So Ireland, as in ERA, has become a regional hub. Northern Ireland is also a regional hub. And I lived and worked in Ireland from Ireland for a long time. So I'm very passionate. My wife's English Irish as well. She's dual nationality. So I'm very sensitive to the sensitivities of the island of Ireland. So I'm glad that we've got a sort of resolution on that. Another one to look at is young photographers 3.5. I know Stuart is involved in teaching young photographers, as am I. And I'm always disappointed how many of my GCSE and A-level students are just don't even know that the RPS exists. And even my graduates and postgraduates know of the RPS, but they think, oh, what's it got to do with me? It's a bunch of old blokes and old women who are keen on photography. And I suppose in a way, historically, they've been right, but I want to change that. And I want to make the RPS a welcome home for certainly for undergrads and postgrads, and hopefully for A-level students as well. And we need to tier the membership. You know, it's too expensive to become a member of the RPS. And maybe if there's a way that we can provide the journal as an online PDF rather than as a print magazine to new members that are joining from schools and colleges, then we should look at that and we should get them in. And yes, there'll be a fall off rate and they'll leave at some point, I'm sure, but they'll remain. Some will remain, and that way we can build the RPS. So you can see that I hope that there are lots of initiatives that can come out of this strategy, and there are even more initiatives when you look at combining some of these programs. But we need to do that together. The trustees are there to provide governance to the RPS, to make sure that we have got a strategic vision, which we have done through this. It's now gone over to the staff and the staff team to look at developing practical initiatives from this, business plans that we can promote and implement these programs. But we're all members of the same society. So wherever possible, I want to bring this back to the membership. And through MemCom is obviously a very elegant rather and efficient way of doing that. So will be the president updates that come out from RPS House. So please read them, because then they're not just sent so that I can put my name at the bottom of an email that goes to everybody. They're only sent with a reason. So what's said in there is important. And the one that's going out that should be deployed today at about midday is introducing the new election cycle, and it is introducing to the members the 4 committee members from nominations committee. And I think I saw Alistair in the audience earlier, who is, oh, he's just appeared. Yes. Just switched over. There he is. So Alistair's yeah. one of the members, one of the 4 members of nominations committee. And I think it's worth just saying here that I sent an email out, a president's update, asking for volunteers from the membership that had good well, not just good, but excellent HR and corporate governance and commercial experience. And it just amazes me that whenever you put a call out for volunteers, we've got such a skilled and professional membership. You know, that anything you want is in that membership somewhere. So we eventually decided on 4, and Alistair is the MemCom representative on the nominations committee. And there's more information on that in the update, which you can read later today. So that's it. That's a high-level half-hour overview of the RPS strategy. Quite happy to take more questions, as we've had some already on the strategy. And then when Stuart, as chair of this meeting, deems it appropriate, we can move on to a discussion about success factors for SIGs and regions. So Stuart, over to you.
That's brilliant. Thank you very much, Simon. Did you want to stop sharing just for a moment? So
I do, but I seem to have lost you. So how do I stop sharing? Can you stop me sharing?
I can stop sharing. Yep.